Up next, State Senator Royce West from Dallas. You made it.
Royce.
Royce.
How you doing, Royce?
All right, Royce.
Astro fans?
How's your flight?
Delayed.
Heard, that's what I heard.
Right, there are a lot of people coming in town for the Astro game this evening. And so what they ended up doing was diverting the commercial flights for the private flights.
Thank you to these fine folks for staying.
Exactly, thank you very much.
So we've been asking a number of candidates some similar question. What's your pitch? What's your core message? Why are you running? You know, Ainsley's favorite question, why now?
Now is because I'm ready. I'm ready to represent the state of Texas based on the experiences that I've had, understanding what the core values of Texans are, and making certain that all those core values are represented in Washington. Corning hasn't done that. He's represented the core values of some persons, but not the entire state of Texas. And when you begin to look at my legislative history on the issues that are important to us as Democrats, you'll see that I have worked in each and every one of those particular areas. So I'm ready to represent the state of Texas as its U.S. Senator.
They applaud on cue. It's great.
On cue, okay.
Switching gears, the Supreme Court announced that it will be hearing its first abortion case since Trump has placed 2 new justices on the court. What would you do as U.S. Senator to protect a woman's right to choose and expand access to abortion?
I think that you can kind of look at a person's past and kind of predict what they're going to do in the future. So if you look at my past as it relates to protecting women's rights to choose, you'll see that when Wendy Davis was on the floor of the state Senate filibustering the bill on choice issues, that myself and Kirk Watson were the lawyers on the floor making certain that the rules of the Senate were in fact observed by the leadership that was attempting to knock her off the floor. You've got to remember historically that night, that those that were there or watched it being live streamed, that the entire gallery in the Senate, the corridors of the Capitol, outside were filled with women that wanted to make certain that we stood up for their rights that night. And we did. We stood up that night. I've continued to stand up for women's rights, and when I become your senator, I'll stand up for your rights as your U.S. Senator.
You said on the stump that you want to bring both sides together to get stuff done. But do most Senate Republicans in the age of Trump even want to come to the bipartisan table? Is this sort of a realistic view in these times we live in?
Well, I'll tell you what happened today on climate change as an example. There was a Democrat and a Republican that basically has decided to put together a caucus, a climate change caucus in the Senate, comprised of both Democrats and Republicans. Novel. I think that when the citizens of this country vote this next time around, they will send the message to both Democrats and Republicans that they want us to sit down and get things done. Let me give you an example. Here in the state of Texas, when teachers decided to stand up for teachers' rights and get out and vote, Republicans hijacked our education issue this last time around, and guess what? Democrats and Republicans came to the table, and we got something done about education. We'll be able to do the same in Washington, assuming that voters get out and send a loud message that the type of things that's been happening with our democracy right now no longer should happen. Then we're going to make certain that we'll be able to get people sitting down at the table to get things done.
I'd love to hear you talk about your path to victory. And, you know, we've heard from candidates based here in Houston. We've heard from Central Texas. You, of course, are from North Texas. Does that geographic distinction come into play?
I think that what comes into play, and is this the Gracie question?
This is the Gracie question, and she's
It's
right there.
It's early on in my
yeah,
question.
You can direct it.
This is what I want you to understand. When you begin to think about whether or not I'm ready to be your U.S. Senator, I think what you have to look at is the level of support that I have. The fact of the matter is that I didn't decide to run to this office without a great deal of deliberation. And that deliberation was with my colleagues in the State House and the State Senate. And when you think about the state senators, each of us represent probably 800,000 to 900,000 people. Of the 12 Democratic senators in the state of Texas, all around the state of Texas, black, white, Latino, 10 are supporting me for the U.S. Senate. When you begin to look at the House of Representatives, there's 67 House members. Of the 67 House members, black, white, Latino, Asian, 49 are supporting me. So what does that tell you, Gracie? That tells you that I have support around the entire state of Texas. How do I go about winning, Gracie? I win like this. I make certain that when I went to those representatives and those senators, I asked them, will you support me? Will you endorse me? Yes. I say, will you, when you have town hall meetings in your district, will you allow me to come and talk to your constituents? That's the way you do it. I'm going to go around the state of Texas and all of those districts, make certain that I join town hall meetings and those constituents get an opportunity to get to know me. But that's not just for the general election. Is when you begin to look at, and you can ask Cliff this, when you begin to look at the number of Democrats that are running for office up and down the polls, you'll see we have Democrats running for the Supreme Court. We have Democrats running for Justice of the Peace. The political synergy of all of those races will help all of us win in November. In addition, we've got to make certain that we reach out to independents and to moderate Republicans. And I have been working with Republicans the 26 years that I've been in office. When you think about issues that I've been able to work with them on, when you think about young people, do you realize that I have been able to sponsor over 2,000 young college students in need of jobs during the summertime, being able to get them internships, those types of things. I'll continue to do that. I'll continue to make certain that I show what my track record has been. And I think the best way to judge what a person's going to do, and I'll put this message out there, continue to put it out there, is look what I've done in the past. And then it's a pretty good indication of what I'll do in the future as your U.S. Senator.
I think you just answered my next question, but...
Okay, then go on to the next one.
No, we'll stick on that one for a second.
Okay.
Two different schools of thought here, how to win in Texas.
All right.
One is to just focus on the base, get the base to turn out. This is in the general election. The other is to, what you just said, go after moderate Republicans and independents. Is your strategy, your path to victory, more the latter?
No, I've got to get the base out. I think you've heard over and over again that Texas is not a red state. Texas is a state that just doesn't vote, okay? We've got a lot of people that are not voting, and we've got to give them a reason to vote. I can give them that reason to vote. I can show young people that I have the record of working with them. I need to figure out whether I can get Chance the Rapper down here, okay, to work with me, things like that. But, you've got to get the base out, and you've got to make certain of those persons that historically have not voted, that they do in fact vote. And so we'll be working on that also.
Do you mind if I throw another one in here?
No, but I would note that Gracie likes Lizzo.
Lizzo?
So if we could, instead of Chance.
Instead of Chance?
Okay. Along the same lines of a process question, if you will. If 2016 is any guide, 2020 will be the campaign of disinformation from the Russians, Trump, and Cornyn. This is at the presidential level, but it's also at the state level. It was 2 years ago already. How do you combat that?
I think the way you combat it, when you begin to look at our state Democratic Party, we're in a resurgence with the party. I think a lot of that is going to have to be kind of coordinated and championed by the party, and also the different camps that we have to work with our party to make certain that when we find this information, that we get it out to the various county chairs to make certain they can get it out to the constituents within those counties. We've got to continue to work at the national level with the Senate Democratic Caucus as well as House Democratic Caucus to make certain when they see disinformation that they use their resources in order to get that information out also.
The Trump administration has implemented rules that have effectively halted asylum seekers from coming to the U.S. What changes in our immigration system do you support that would treat asylum seekers humanely and keep families together?
I think it's the biggest thing. First of all, I have never ever seen our country so divided. When you begin to look at Charlottesville, you begin to look at his response to the mass shootings here across the country. When you begin to think about what he just did with the Kurds in terms of turning his back on the Kurds, we have a White House right now that obviously doesn't know what it's doing. When we begin to look at the hearings that are going on in Congress in terms of his impeachment, and I know you're going to ask me that question, look forward to answering it. But when you begin to think about in the history of during your lifetime or my lifetime, I have never ever seen a U.S. government divide families in the way that he has. I mean, taking kids and put them in cages. And so what do we do about it? The fact of the matter is it's an issue of priorities. The question is whether or not we put more judges, get the adjudication process ramped up so people can go through that particular process in an expedited manner in order to determine whether or not they should in fact be allowed to seek asylum in the United States.
Impeachment. So you've come out for the inquiry a few weeks ago.
Yes.
A lot has happened since then.
Well, I mean, this is what I think.
So are you, real quick, are you still on the inquiry, or are you for full-fledged outright impeachment at this point?
I'm still on the inquiry. Because let me tell you why. I'm an attorney. I'm an officer of the court. And frankly, what we see right now, and you've heard the media talk about this, what we have is the special committee doing the investigation. Frankly, it's acting as a grand jury. Having been a prosecutor, having presented cases to the grand jury, I understand the secretive nature of that. And what's going to happen is that once the committee finishes its work, you will see articles of impeachment that the committee will come up with. And that's just like a grand jury indictment. And so I think that we've got to continue to allow the committee to do its work. And probably some of the best evidence is Trump himself. Okay? He's some of the best evidence. The fact of the matter is he got on television and said what? Yes, I did it. No, I didn't. Yes, I did. No, I didn't. Okay? But the fact is he's going to be some of the best evidence in terms of these articles of impeachment, and I know that in all probability, you're going to see those articles of impeachment come out of this particular committee.
If you're not the nominee, will you support the Democratic?
Absolutely.
What's your take on the GM workers' strike going on?
Well, I think they've got a deal now. My son-in-law works for General Motors, so I'm all for the strike, okay? My daughter told me I had to be for it, okay? I mean, the reality is that if you check with union leaders in this state, I've been with them from the very beginning, okay? And we've got to make certain that we continue to support our unions, and needless to say, I support those union members' right to strike.
Senator, thank you.
Thank you. It's yours. Your choice is Royce? Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.